Emmanuel and Natalie don't know it yet, but this Tuesday, May 29th, 2012, will be the worst day of their lives. They are the parents of two young girls, Luan, 6 years old, and Maïline, 3 years old. That evening, they invited a few friends over for a dinner aperitif in an apartment in Lyon's 6th arrondissement, which they would be staying in for a few weeks between jobs. At the end of the day, the atmosphere is festive, and there's already a holiday vibe in the air as this beautiful month of May comes to a close. Once the meal is prepared, the guests, who are actually other moms and their daughters, arrive. Everyone laughs when Emmanuel points out, "But why am I the only guy here?" All the girls are playing in the bedrooms. The adults ask them to come eat, but the older girls refuse. So Emmanuel and Natalie keep Maïline, the youngest of the group, so she can have dinner peacefully. They give her a little cocktail sausage shaped like small balls, which she takes with her as she goes to sit on the couch. Emmanuel is in the middle of opening a bottle when suddenly Maïline comes up behind him, her hands clutching her throat. She can't speak anymore, she's stomping her feet on the floor, like a child throwing a tantrum, but no sound comes out of her mouth. Emmanuel immediately realizes that she's choking, but suddenly Maïline collapses, unconscious. Her dad catches her by the arm, but she slumps down. He yells to Natalie, "Call the fire department." He grabs Maïline, positions her in front of him, and tries the Heimlich maneuver for the first time. He shouts even louder at Natalie, who is frozen in shock.
Call fire!
No, you can do it! You'll get it out!
But Natalie realizes how urgent the situation is and dials the number. Unfortunately, there's almost no cell signal in the apartment, so Natalie goes outside to the inner courtyard to make the call. Meanwhile, Emmanuel does everything he can to dislodge whatever is blocking Maïline's airway, but nothing works. Natalie comes back into the apartment, phone in hand, and tries to talk and relay the firefighters' instructions from the call. But Emmanuel already knows the protocols they are telling him to follow. Thanks to the first aid training he took, he has already assessed how critical Maïline's condition is. Natalie has to go back outside because the call keeps dropping. Second Heimlich attempt, no result. Third attempt, still no result. Emmanuel screams panic.
She is in cardiac and respiratory arrest, unconscious.
He knows firefighters are listening online. He keeps going, but there's no more sound. He hears Natalie returning.
They say to hit her on the back with the hand flat.
He remembers the procedure for children, positions himself and does it. Between the shoulder blades, he focuses even more. He tries again, but nothing.
She's unconscious, Natalie. She's not breathing anymore.
He screams again and again.
Tell them she's not breathing anymore. Tell them.
He shouts, gives orders. Outside, Natalie calls the firefighter, who speaks calmly. Bish. She thinks he doesn't understand how serious it is, so she repeats, as Emmanuel begs her to.
She's not breathing anymore. She's not breathing anymore.
She wants to scream so that he understands, but he has understood. Nothing else exists anymore. No more setting, no more guests, no more big girls in their room. Everything is racing through Emmanuel's mind. The firefighters need to get here fast, right now, and take Maïline. His mind races. The apartment is too far from the entrance. They may not make it. Maïline's mouth is reddened by her blood. He takes her in his arms and goes down the wooden stairs. He steps onto the street. But there is a deep silence. This silence. Why this silence? He doesn't hear the sirens, but why doesn't he hear the sirens? He gently lays Maïline down on the sidewalk in front of the building, careful with her head, her mouth, the blood, chest compressions. He starts, he presses. Nothing. He expects nothing. There's nothing he can do until help arrives. He presses on his daughter's chest. He alternates with mouth to mouth and presses again. Nothing matters anymore. Nothing and no one. The city is silent, as if also waiting for the arrival of the emergency services and the sirens, normally shrill. Suddenly, he feels a hand on his shoulder.
Sir, we'll take over.
It's a firefighter. Emmanuel steps aside. The firefighters take over. He realizes they saw him performing CPR from afar, but their truck was blocked in this one-way street, so they decided to run. Emmanuel doesn't understand what they're saying, doesn't hear them. He hears nothing. Will this silence ever end? He works tirelessly beside his daughter, beautiful, lying there on the ground, but it's taking too long. A firefighter tells him we got her to vomit up the sausage. He immediately thinks, if she vomited, it means she's alive. Emergency services from SMER arrive. Firefighters need more equipment, hands and expertise.
Go wash up, sir. We'll take her as soon as she's stable.
I'll just pause us for a moment to tell you that if you're interested in stories of miracles, there are two websites I especially recommend. First, the 1000 Raisons de Croire website, which gathers sources for hundreds of miracle cases. It's quite impressive because there are plenty of others that happened in the 2000s or 2010s. Go check it out on their website and subscribe to their newsletter. And by the way, I also recommend another newsletter, edition.fr, which offers quality features on various topics related to the Catholic faith, such as miracles, angels, demons, and so on. All the links are in the description. Emmanuel climbs the stairs to his apartment, but people who saw what happened invite him to use their bathroom, which is closer. They rinse their hands, they're covered in blood. Why this blood? Maïline's blood, his little girl. The red color fades away with the water. It's so simple, so easy to erase the traces of this accident. And yet, is it really over? He lifts his head to freshen up and his mouth is covered in blood. Still this blood, everywhere. He goes back down. Nothing has changed. They're still there, but why are they here? Why all these trips to the emergency vehicle? Why all these injections? Why aren't we leaving? Isn't she stable yet? Not stable enough to be transported? She's slipping away, say the SMER doctors. It's another way of saying she's dying. Her mother is shocked. Maïline, is she going to die? On a sidewalk, can life change in 2 seconds? It's not possible. It can't be that. She can't die like this.
She just choked. It can't be that complicated.
The escorting police officers are here. Inside, Emmanuel thinks this isn't good. This heightens the urgency, the critical nature of the case, the emergency. But he says nothing to Natalie. Time drags on. Suddenly, a firefighter shouts, "We're leaving!" Emmanuel runs up to the apartment to get the car keys, taking the stairs quickly. As he's about to go back down, Luan, his eldest, looks at him with eyes full of tears, her hands tightly clutching Mayline's comforter, and says to him,
Come on, Daddy. Mayline is going to ask for my pacifiers.
"Keep it, Luan, I'll give it to her later." They run back downstairs and join Natalie. The police officers advise her not to follow them.
We're taking him away. Meet us at Women Mother Child Hospital.
No, we're coming with you.
Be careful, drive safely, and follow us.
Mayline is loaded in. Yep. Everyone sets off. Firefighters, Smur doctor, motorcycle police. The convoy moves out. City silent. So dark. Is he really using the sirens? Emmanuel feels like they're not driving fast enough. Natalie talks to him, but he's fixated on the speed. Or rather, what feels to him like the slowness of their race against time for Mayline's life. Faster, faster, go faster. They're not going fast enough. Finally, they arrive. They park in the first spot right next to the rescue truck. The firefighters take out the stretcher. Mayline is strapped in, motionless. Emmanuel and Natalie walk beside her as the stretcher is wheeled along, hesitant to touch her for fear of causing even more pain than she is already enduring. "You can kiss her," one firefighter tells them, seeing how distraught they are. Natalie perhaps imagines that if he allows them to kiss her, it means she is out of danger. She strokes her hair and showers her with kisses.
I love you, Mayline. I love you. It's Mom.
We love you, Mayline. Be strong. Fight, Mayline. Can you hear us? Fight.
The stretcher moves forward into the blinding light of the emergency room corridor, then disappears into a room, leaving them motionless, alone in the hallway, facing the door. The emergency doctor is already giving his first report as he closes the door.
Glasgow 3, multiple cardiac arrest, brain anoxia.
Emmanuel and Natalie don't know it yet, but the Glasgow scale, which measures the depth of a coma, ranges from 3 to 15, with 3 being the most severe stage. They are then asked to wait on some chairs. There, the wait feels endless to them.
Cardiac arrest, stabilizing before transfer.
A medical staff member informs them in passing. They look at each other, bewildered.
You mean another cardiac arrest?
Natalie asks,
They're having trouble stabilizing her, Emmanuel.
She just choked. Why is she having cardiac arrests?
I don't know, Nath.
The wait goes on. Minutes last for hours. A doctor tells them there have been more complications. Mayline has had more cardiac arrests and has a pulmonary embolism. She is not stable. It's difficult to keep her alive. A few hours go by. Of course, for Emmanuel and Natalie, sleep is out of the question. They continue to wait there, anxious, in the hospital corridors. Finally, a doctor comes to meet them to give them an update. He presents his findings.
It's complex, we're doing all we can.
What do you mean, everything you can? We don't understand.
We're not sure she'll make it through the night. We're not sure her heart can hold out. You can go see her now if you wish.
The doctor guides them and opens the glass door, then discreetly leaves them alone with Mayline. Emmanuel and Natalie are in shock, helpless, motionless, paralyzed by the horror of seeing Mayline on that bed. She is on her bed, strapped down to prevent convulsions. Indeed, since she has suffered numerous cardiac arrests, her brain is in distress, and her convulsions are evidence that her brain's capacity to handle this trauma is overwhelmed. She was then given atropine and adrenaline, and her heart rate was raised to 205 beats per minute to restart her heart. Since she suffered a pulmonary embolism, her lungs need to be cleared of the fluids that have accumulated there. So the trembling of her body is the result of the measures taken to save her lungs. An entire wall of electronic equipment, syringe pumps, sensors, monitoring screens, and tubes extends from this wall toward Mayline. They enter everywhere under her hospital gown, through the sleeves, through her nose, through her legs. She is completely connected. How could she possibly be more so? There is no more room on the bed for any additional tubes, and all those catheters on the left and right which have torn the delicate skin of their little girl. The ventilator restricts her mouth. Sticky pads have been placed on her head, and the noises are everywhere. Beeps of different tones echo from all directions. The ventilator on the left is making an unbearable racket. It's the pump that removes blood from her lungs. Everything is too noisy for their daughter. Under the compressions of the artificial ventilator, her small body vibrates with the air being forced into her lungs. It's so violent. How does she endure it? Then there's that monitor displaying 210 beats per minute. How can such a tiny heart withstand that? It's unimaginable, this violence to awaken such a fragile body. The doctor had warned them before they went in, but how is this possible? It's unbearable to see her like this. Grief overwhelms Emmanuel and Natalie, but their tears are dry. They have none left. They have already cried too much for hours. They stand there, unable to understand how it came to this, over a small piece of sausage. They position themselves on either side of her bed. Natalie is the first to speak.
Mayline, it's Mom and Dad. Can you hear us? Mayline, we're here. We love you, Mayline. We'll be here all the time, okay?
Mayline, you have to fight. You have to be strong.
Morning arrives. The doctors invite them to rest. They will need their strength for what comes next. But neither Emmanuel nor Natalie truly grasp the seriousness of the situation. They think she will recover. For Natalie, maïline returning to school before the end of the year seems obvious. After going back home for a few hours to rest and shower, they return at the end of the morning. In the meantime, maïline has been placed in an induced coma so her lungs can recover. The doctors announce that this could take up to 10 days. That seems like an eternity to the parents, but at that moment, they have no idea that this is only the beginning. And if it had really lasted only 10 days, they would have been very happy. In the evening, they pick up Luane, who had been looked after for the night and the day by a mother who had been invited for drinks. Luane is in shock, but her parents try their best to reassure her, telling her that maïline is just sleeping and that she will come back. At the beginning of June 2012, the little family finds themselves just 3 in the apartment, which suddenly feels very quiet. No more shouting, no more parents scolding the girls to calm down. They used to be so noisy together. There is no more desire, no meaning. We go to bed not wanting to eat, we slept. Why? How can you sleep? Everyone keeps crying over and over. Every day, trips back and forth to hospital. Results are not good, but hope things will get better remains. Emmanuel and Natalie want to believe, even though there is no sign that she will survive. And then, after several days, maïline finally opens her eyes. She cries, a hoarse cry in terrible pain. She seems to be trying to speak, to say a word, to scream. They quickly call the nurse to let her know that maïline is waking up. The young nurse arrives, approaching maïline's bed with a disconcerting indifference. Her parents are speechless, hanging on in anticipation of a promising sign, a sign of awakening. The nurse takes her small flashlight and waves it in front of maïline's eyes.
No, she is still in a coma.
But she's crying.
The nurse snaps fingers by maïline's eyes.
You see, she's not here. These are just neurological reactions.
It is clear, however, that maïline's eyes are different. Her parents realize with fear, resignation, and helplessness that she is no longer there. Her gaze is empty. They no longer recognize her. All they see in the depths of her eyes is an intense, wet, glassy blackness. They used to feel as if they had access to the depths of her soul, and now there is nothing left, just emptiness. In a word, she is gone, absent. The pain that strikes the parents at that moment is probably the most intense they have ever felt, as Emmanuel, the father, would later testify.
It is a pain that hurts deep within yourself. Hurts, the word is not strong enough. There is no word that can describe this pain, a pain we never could have imagined. It feels as if your living heart is being torn out in such unbearable pain that you cannot react, speak, scream, or move. It empties your body. It stabs you deep inside, in that unknown place that only those most tested by life can know.
Every evening coming home is a torment. Hope is shattered. It's over. A part of the family has just died irreversibly. Emmanuel and Natalie's life is one of constant suffering. Experts believe that losing a child is the hardest grief to bear, even more so than losing a spouse or a parent. They walk through the apartment in perfect silence. This silence is the abandonment of life in all its forms. No effort has meaning anymore. The suffering is so immense, one wonders what God is doing. Yet, it isn't over. If today, little Melintra's story is known worldwide, it's not without reason. One night, Emmanuel has a strange dream. He finds himself in a Parisian brasserie. The tables are occupied. The atmosphere is inviting. He senses the bustle of the service, the customers speaking loudly and laughing, the echo of the place. Alone at his table, he enjoys his meal. And yet he has the strange feeling that he is not alone. Suddenly, it seems to him that the noise level drops. The sounds are still there, but they seem muffled. No matter how much he looks around, the customers keep eating, talking to each other, laughing, but now in an almost silent background noise. Then the lights gradually dim and the entire setting disappears. Everything turns black. Only his body seems to glow. Or rather, only the color of his skin seems to exist in this darkness. Then all at once the light grows more intense at the heart of the lingering darkness. He realizes that this light comes from the glow of flames. They appear before him, both frightening and intriguing at the same time. It is his hands that are on fire. They burn, but it is completely painless. They are simply in flames. He gazes at them with curiosity and amazement, feeling at peace. Suddenly, a clear, powerful voice, neither threatening nor frightening, addresses him. Place your hands on your daughter's head. The sound of this voice comes from nowhere and everywhere at once. The words are clearly audible to him. The tone is both firm and soothing, irresistibly captivating. But how could these flames possibly heal maïline's badly damaged head? He hears the voice again.
Do not be afraid. Trust me. Place your hands on maïline's head.
Its words are penetrating, leaving no room for doubt. As if each word carried a supernatural power, its words are truth. Emmanuel is in a state of complete trust, surrender, and deep peace. The voice speaks again.
She'll be saved.
While Emmanuel is still staring at the flames in his hands, the darkness suddenly gives way to light. The sounds of the restaurant and conversations return to normal volume. A moment later, he wakes up and finds himself in his bed, in his apartment in Lyon, next to Natalie, who is finally asleep. The lack of sleep consuming the couple for days has finally gotten the better of her. Emmanuel doesn't understand anything. He has never had a dream so powerful, so disturbing, and that felt so real. That voice left its mark deep inside him, a feeling of complete trust and the total disappearance of doubt. He is not left unscathed.
You sleeping?
Natalie suddenly asks him.
No, I think I'm going to go check on Maïline.
He gets up and in the middle of the night goes to see his little girl. He has to see her, talk to her. But once he's in front of the hospital bed, he starts to doubt and doesn't dare place his hands on his daughter's head, as the voice in that strange dream had urged him to. How could that possibly heal her? It's impossible anyway. So he stays by her side all night and only decides to go home at dawn. Days go by and Maïline undergoes more and more tests. Ultrasound, CT scan, electroencephalogram, MRI, some static test, and so on. Finally, the doctors explain that nothing more can be done for her, that she shows no potential for recovery, that the basal ganglia have been affected, which means her limb coordination is impaired, that her entire brain has been damaged, and that her encephalograms are not good. And to top it all off, the doctors observe a bilateral abolition of the N20 wave, which is apparently very bad news. All this jargon is to explain that she is in a neurovegetative coma and will never come out of it. Her brain is irreversibly damaged. Nothing can be done, and she is likely to die in the coming days. Medicine isn't always an exact science, but in this case, the doctors are absolutely certain. They are categorical, so the diagnosis could not be more unfavorable. There is absolutely no hope left. It's over. Emmanuel is devastated. He tells himself what he did was for nothing. Such effort to revive her, Heimlich maneuver, cardiac massage, carrying her down to emergency team and firefighters. These images come flooding back. All that for nothing? He understands despite all their goodwill, the doctors have their limits and can't help Maïline medically. It is now the 10th day after the accident. On that day, Emmanuel and Natalie were called in by the entire medical team for an important update. A doctor begins to speak.
The Leonetti law allows us, in these circumstances and given the clinical and biological results, to not perform resuscitation if infection or other complications occur. We propose to stop feeding. It will take a few days at most before cardiac arrest, but with a high dose of morphine, she will pass away more quickly. Because today that's the only thing still keeping her alive.
Emmanuel and Natalie are stunned.
Is Maïline going to die of hunger?
No, she will have no perception of hunger. She will not suffer. We can be there for her and make sure she doesn't feel anything.
Yes, but she's going to die of hunger. You don't die of hunger in a few hours. It takes days. She'll waste away. She'll change. Horrible. Impossible.
Then the second doctor goes over the test results again, the details, and talks about this bilateral abolition of the N20 wave. Emmanuel asks,
But what is this N20 wave you keep talking about? It's a wave that passes through the basal ganglia and allows the brain to transmit information to the rest of the body. When a patient loses this wave on one side, the patient can still live. There will be after effects, but survival is possible. In Maïline's case, the wave has been abolished bilaterally.
Okay, but can this change?
Yes, but this change can only be negative. It can only get worse, and that's how we assess this progression. The N20 wave can never come back, it can only deteriorate.
And if she lacks this N20 wave, what does deteriorate mean?
She will die within days or weeks.
So there is no urgency.
the parents decide to wait. We clearly explained to them that even if they decide not to stop feeding, Maïline will die in the coming weeks or months at most, because her brain will not be able to withstand all this suffering. At least if it has to happen, it won't be their decision, they tell themselves. They want to let things happen naturally. The days go by then. Emmanuel is forced to return to work in Paris during the week. He has no choice. Natalie goes to see Maïline every day. They know that the time of her death is approaching slowly but surely. Natalie tells her husband that every day when she enters Maïline's hospital room, Maïline starts to cry. Then she calms down at the sound of her mother's voice. Of course, she's here. She hasn't left yet, she tells herself. But the doctors keep repeating that these are only comatose reflexes. A patient in a coma can laugh or cry, but it's just an uncontrolled reflex of the brain. At the same time, Elisabeth Descarac, a mother of a student at Maïline and her sister's school, Lyon, brings up to the school principal the idea of having all the children at the school recite the novena through the intercession of Pauline Jaricot for Maïline's healing. This mother has lost 2 children and is particularly shaken by what is happening to Maïline. A novena, for Catholics, is 9 consecutive days of prayer to ask God for a particular grace through the intercession of one of his saints. Catholics believe, in fact, that those who have died in God's friendship are in heaven with him, and that we can ask them to implore God with us for a special grace in our lives. Upon learning of Myline's accident, Elizabeth quickly thinks of entrusting her to Pauline Jaricot, a woman from Lyon who had died exactly 150 years earlier. Pauline Jaricot was a woman of faith who lived in the 19th century and worked tirelessly to support the spread of the Christian faith, and to encourage Catholics to pray the Rosary to the Virgin Mary. With the director's approval, the novena to Pauline Jaricot for Maïline begins on June 15th, 2012. Emmanuel and Natalie are informed. Emmanuel is not particularly religious. He had already entered churches several times to pray, but he wasn't even a Christian, not even baptized. So they had never done a novena before, but why not? Anything is worth trying to keep their hope alive to save Maïline after all. So they make the effort to recite it every evening. And many members of their family, from the school or elsewhere, also pray it every day. During those days, Maïline also receives the sacrament of the sick, which is a special prayer administered by a priest to ask God for strength to get through an illness or a trial. When Emmanuel returns to Lyon on the weekends, the appointments with the doctors don't stop. They suggest once again that they review the end-of-life plan. But her parents refuse to end her life now. All the more so because Maïline could survive for several more months in this condition, as her state has relatively stabilized. It is therefore decided that she will be transferred to the neuropediatrics department. During this month of June, the parents regularly receive messages from people they know to varying degrees, telling them how much they continue to pray for Maïline and her recovery. Since then, people from Asia, Latin America, Tibet, and even Jerusalem have been praying for Maïline. The prayer chain has spread like wildfire. Often, and even much later, her parents still ask themselves this question: why do so many people think of and pray for Maïline? There are so many children in need, dying every day from malnutrition, from violence, victims of the worst atrocities. So why so many messages of love? There is also this firefighter, Alexandre Lefusson, who, during the rescue, had been moved by Maïline. He then brought her a comfort toy to the hospital and left a letter for the parents, saying that he would regularly check in for news. The novena ends in June, but nothing, no awakening or instant miracle as had been asked for. Yet despite thousands of people including her in their prayers, it is hard to keep hope alive. When doctors repeated day after day that she could die at any moment, at the end of June, Luane could visit her little sister. Why, here is a photo of the two girls, showing the tenderness between two sisters in such a tragic ordeal. Then, on July 2nd, it was the big day for the hospital transfer. This is not going to cure her. Maïline certainly, but she will probably end up in a quieter ward. So she is transferred by ambulance to Lanval Hospital in Nice, where the Tran family has to move for work. Emmanuel, Natalie, and Luane return one last time to the apartment in Lyon, which has witnessed the worst. There, the bloodstain on the sidewalk is still visible, even though the owners cleaned it up the day after the accident. Then, they set off for Nice to reunite with Maïline. The whole little family meets up again with the nurses and Maïline lying motionless on a stretcher, just as they had left her the day before in Lyon. But right away, they notice something in Maïline's eyes. It's impossible to describe, but she is completely different. They look closer. Yes, they're sure of it. Her eyes, her pupils are shining and show signs of life. How is this possible? Yet there is no doubt Maïline is back.
She's really here with us, exclaims Natalie.
Emmanuel would later testify that he thought, this is unimaginable.
It's a miracle. It's as if someone flipped the life switch, the heavenly switch that no one has access to. It's that simple, and yet how can it be that simple? I started questioning the nurses and caregivers. What happened during the transport? Did something occur? The nurses didn't notice anything unusual.
They explained the feeding system didn't work, but apart from that, nothing out of the ordinary. She didn't have time to get hungry or become dehydrated.
Yet the parents have no doubt. Maïline is radically different. She remains completely comatose and shows no particular expression, but she still seems much more alive than before. They are certain of it. A medical appointment is arranged for Maïline's arrival in the department. Dr. R, along with an entire medical team, meets the parents in an office. The doctor begins.
Your daughter's file does not match Maïline's clinical condition. The little girl who was described to me over the phone before her arrival does not match what I am observing.
Silence. The parents are in shock, but they don't really understand what he means. Inside, they are overwhelmed with questions. How is this possible after so many tests? Could they have made a mistake? Did the doctors send Maïline with a file that wasn't hers? And what about this end-of-life plan? They ask the doctor, who replies,
No, Maïline will not die in my department. But I'm also not going to tell you that everything will get better. She will be severely disabled. She will not be aware of her surroundings and will not be able to communicate with you. She won't be able to do anything anymore on her own. The best she might do is move her eyes and maybe eat spoonfuls. Even then, I can't guarantee it. Marie, I don't know, maybe a few meters. Then the doctor continues. I want you to be fully aware of this because it will be an extremely heavy burden to bear. A choice that will irreversibly change your life. An exhausting burden for the caregivers.
It may sound terrible, of course, but for Emmanuel and Natalie it's a true victory, because their daughter, who will remain severely disabled, at least is not going to die. But the parents were clearly not at the end of their surprises. As July went on, Mayline's parents increasingly felt that her condition was changing. After a few days, she starts sucking her thumb again. Around July 20th, while being tickled, she bursts out laughing. Emmanuel and Natalie can't believe it. They are overwhelmed. With each passing day, Maïline seems to be filled with a little more life. By the end of July, they notice she starts to sense when they leave in the evening, to the point of crying, and that she seems to want to start saying softly again, Papa or Mama, if she can't manage it. Yet the medical staff keep telling them it is absolutely impossible for her to come out of the vegetative state in which they found her, and that these are surely just neurological reflexes. But as parents, Emmanuel and Natalie feel it is much more than that. Dr. R himself is also finally starting to be intrigued by Maïline's condition. He then brings in a doctor, Dr. F, from the Cadran Solaire's clinic in Vance, a specialist in rehabilitation, to have Maïline undergo some physical tests involving flexion and movement. During one of these procedures, he turns to his colleague and discreetly whispers to her.
That's strange, he whispers so she doesn't hear. He repeats, that's strange. This time, Emmanuel cuts in.
What's strange? The doctor, somewhat embarrassed, replies to him.
With so many after effects, she can't do that. Can't do what?
We didn't see anything. Reacting to this test. A few days after that, Mayline very clearly says for the first time, Mama, in front of several witnesses. This time, the medical staff, shocked, clearly heard it. Emmanuel and Natalie's eyes fill with tears. She is here, truly here. And now the doctors know it. There is no longer any doubt. Days go by, and the nurses try to give Mayline gelled water, which she manages to swallow. Again, that's a very good sign. But a new MRI will quickly dash all the parents' hopes. Indeed, Dr. R wanted to observe the state of Mayline's brain once again. And there, he confirms that the brain remains globally and irreversibly damaged. The brain has shrunk, and the basal ganglia are also completely affected. And in short, even though medicine is not always an exact science, once again, the only thing the doctors are absolutely certain about is that no recovery will ever be possible for Maïline. She is moved once again in August 2012 to the Laurier Rose Nursery in Bandol. There, after a few weeks, a doctor tests Maïline's reactions on the sole of her foot, then examines her legs.
He states, she responds well to the stimulus I apply and has a surprising muscle tone for a patient who has suffered such an accident with all these after effects. Remarkable. What do you mean? Her legs react, that's all. I also can't give you any further hope, but Maïline does perceive the stimuli we give her. This would have been completely unthinkable back in July, and even more so in June.
Yet, with each passing day, Maïline seems to be recovering. Soon, she starts saying short sentences. For more than 2 months, her parents have been praying more fervently than ever. They feel that the more they pray, the more Maïline recovers. So, they persevere and keep pleading. Natalie keeps repeating,
I want to get my old life back. I don't want to get Maïline back halfway, or even at 80%, but at 100%.
Emmanuel offers perspective.
That's good. Everything she can do.
But Natalie doesn't think that's enough. She wants everything. In September, the progress is so remarkable that Maïline even starts to walk a few steps again. She is no longer the limp puppet she was just a few weeks earlier, but simply like a child who lacks a bit of muscle tone. Still, she spends most of her time in a wheelchair. In October, the progress speeds up dramatically. Maïline starts talking again, communicating, and doing so many other everyday tasks. On November 5th, an appointment was then made with Dr. F, who had, with Dr. R, monitored Maïline's health in Nice. The little family visits his clinic and he opens the door.
Hello, Madam Sir, and... Maïline, my God, but she's standing up, exclaims the doctor.
Later at the visit, explains.
Maïline's changed. It's impressive. She walks, but she shouldn't be able to do that.
She understands us and tries to speak. In November, Maïline begins rehabilitation. Dr. F also suggests to Dr. R that he see her again, explaining he has never seen anything like this. The Tran family finally gets an appointment with Dr. R on December 21st, 2012. In the waiting room, Maïline watches the fish in the aquarium. Dr. R arrives.
That's Maïline. That's her, Emmanuel replies.
He is stunned when he sees Maïline standing and watching the fish in the aquarium at his office. She was supposedly only able to move her eyes and was thought to be unaware of her surroundings. This is a far cry from the initial diagnosis. Dr. R had been informed by his colleague, but still, he explains.
I was very far from imagining I would see her like this, standing upright on her own. Every year, we see children who have drowned, who have suffered the same anoxia as Maïline. Very few of them survive, and those who do are left with very, very severe disabilities. An almost insurmountable burden for the parents. We are rarely wrong, and when we are not far off in our assessments. But with Maïline, it's truly impressive.
At the end of this consultation, he wrote in large letters on the medical file, "Extraordinary recovery." However, he added that the recovery would never be complete. He clearly remembers what he saw on the MRI. These are irreversible damages to the brain, which will inevitably leave lasting marks. According to the doctor, she will never be able to walk fully again and will always need a wheelchair. If only he knew that this was just the very beginning. Yes, the months will keep passing by, and the progress, which all the doctors said was impossible, will not slow down. We arrive in April 2013. Maïline has another appointment with Dr. R. So, astonished, he declares,
Maïline made good progress.
"It's impressive." When the parents ask him how this is possible, he gives them this comparison.
Imagine you're driving on the highway. You're driving along peacefully and suddenly you run out of gas. You pull over to the side. Your engine stops. You turn off the engine, wait a few moments, and then you decide to turn the key to start it again. And then all of a sudden your engine starts up again and you can drive forever without any gas. Is that possible? Oh no, that's impossible. It's impossible? Well, that's Maïline.
A few days later, on April 14, 2013, the family also has an appointment with the hospital's chief physician, women, mothers, children from Bron, who cared for Maïline at the start. He heard about Maïline's health improvement and wants to see the miracle himself. He's in the office, he explains.
So here is Maïline. Impressive. You know, I am still in contact with Dr. R, my colleague from Enval, to try to understand Maïline's case. There are so many astonishing things about Maïline. We really don't understand how all of this could have happened. I have been following the tests, the results are sent to me without their analyses, and we compare our deductions to see if either of us discover something. But we always agree on the outcome. Listen, truly, I wanted you to know that nothing, absolutely nothing, indicated such a recovery. We have analyzed the test results over and over again. You know, we don't make such serious decisions unless we are absolutely certain. But in view of all these results, there was no other drawing. For Maïline, it was a certainty.
Then we reach the end of the year, 2013, and Maïline has almost completely returned to being like a normal child. In this photo, she is accompanying her dad and his friend Alexandre, the firefighter, who are finishing a marathon. On October 9, 2013, Dr. R continues to monitor her case and requests that Maïline undergo a new series of tests with another external specialist in order to possibly find explanations for her recovery, which for now remains unexplained. The doctor only had Maïline's medical file in his possession, including the MRIs. It is her mother who accompanies her to the appointment. After waiting in the waiting room, the doctor arrives.
Go come in.
But you don't have her wheelchair. What do you mean, her wheelchair? Natalie wonders what this doctor is talking about.
But she is able to walk? I'm sorry to have to ask you this question.
Yes.
That's not possible, given the results of these tests.
Yes, it is.
Can you help her onto the table? The doctor continues, still puzzled. He watches Natalie help Maïline onto the table.
Yes. Min, let's get you on the table.
But you came here on foot.
Well, yes. The doctor is very surprised. Indeed, based on the medical report he read from his colleagues, he was not at all expecting to see Maïline in such a condition. The attendant clearly understood the skeptical state the doctor was in.
She shouldn't be here anymore.
She shouldn't be able to walk. The doctor presses further.
Meanwhile, he has placed electrodes on Maïline's skin to stimulate certain areas of the brain with electrical impulses. He sees the new results and says, "Impossible."
What is impossible? Natalie asks.
The N20 wave is passing bilaterally at 100%. Impossible. And then she was Glasgow 3.
As the months and years go by, Maïline is doing better. Elisabeth Descarac, the student's mother who had the school pray for Maïline's recovery, asked parents for the medical reports for analysis by other doctors. But none of the doctors who look into this case are able to find an explanation. New MRIs scheduled pre-summer 2015. The Tran's no MRIs. Maïline had one the accident night, another 3 days later, another 10 days after, and one at Lenval in Nice. The further the days got from the date of the accident, the worse the results became. The diagnosis had shifted from obvious trauma to a necrotic brain, then to a completely diffuse lace-like pattern throughout the entire brain and the basal ganglia. All of this supported the terrifying diagnosis of a deep coma with no brain activity and no possibility of recovery. In short, an irreversible condition, leading at worst to death within a few days and at best to a lifelong vegetative state. The possibility of error in this initial diagnosis is ruled out, as this always identical, easily identified diagnosis was confirmed many times by different doctors from various hospitals, the Women, Mothers and Children of Lyon and the Lanval Foundation in Nice. The 3 initial MRIs, one the night of the accident, another at 3 days, and another at 10 days, are still available. When new doctors review them, they only confirm the findings. Indeed, a diagnosis of coma, Glasgow 3, the deepest level, with irreversible brain damage, leading to certain death, or at best, a deep lifelong vegetative state. The doctor performs an MRI on Maïline, takes images, then compares them with those from 2012. He places one image over the other, then switches them.
I'm not crazy after all. I was the one who did the first MRIs, he says, turning to his assistant.
My name is on them. The assistant doesn't understand either. And at least, not better than he does. Natalie sits straighter to listen.
That's impossible. What's impossible? I've never seen anything like this. No, I've never seen this before. Seen what? Well, I've never seen such a recovery. I was the one who did her last MRI, and this is the first time I've seen a recovery like this. The brain, which had lost volume uniformly, has regained almost all of its original size.
You see, the spaces between the skull and the brain are completely normal, to put it simply. And on this one, do you see the difference? Her brain used to look like lace and now it's regenerated. I've never seen this in my career. And I'm not exactly young anymore.
Impressive. His assistant stayed by his side, also astonished after holding the images that the doctor handed him as soon as he finished his analysis. He adds, looking at Natalie, "It's a miracle." For those who want to know more, I based my entire investigation on the book Saved by a Miracle, written by Mayline's father himself. He himself converted, by the way, after this miracle. If this story moved you, go read his book to learn much more and get many more details. I relied entirely on his book to tell you this story, but there is still so much more in it, so I highly recommend it. After listening to all the doctors and reading their medical reports, the Catholic Church will recognize that this case is indeed a miracle, and will beatify Pauline Jaricot on May 22, 2022, in the presence of Maïline, in perfect health, and her entire family. Beatification is a kind of recognition. Posthumous, it is the first step to being declared a Catholic saint and confirms that the deceased person, in this case, Pauline Jaricot, was truly a friend of God. She truly interceded for the miracle of Maïline's healing. There you have it. This was the 19th miracle in our series on 100 cases of miracles. Go check out the other 18 that have already been released on my channel. Some of them are absolutely incredible. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Some of you might be wondering, just as Emmanuel and Natalie did, why did God heal Maïline? And why does he sometimes not heal other sick people we pray for? Honestly, I don't have time to go into detail here. But for those who are interested, I've created a course, a complete guide to spiritual life in 7 modules on a separate platform. And in Module 2 specifically, there is a nearly 50-minute lesson on the meaning of suffering and the 7 reasons why God allows suffering, which also serve as answers to why God does not always answer prayers. I can only recommend that you take this course. I'm putting a link in the description and in a pinned comment for those who are interested. Or you can click here. This was Ennis. Ciao.